Hi, everybody. Welcome to the live stream. Thanks for being a part of this. You know, I love doing these, right? I'm going to try to get through everybody's questions, but a lot of my Patreon people and YouTube members submitted questions ahead of time, and I make a special promise with them that I'm going to answer their questions no matter what. Actually, I try not to say that. I try to say that I'm going to address their questions no matter what. Not all these questions have answers, I guess. Maybe it's kind of annoying to spend time on that point. But the point is, if you're one of my Patreon people or YouTube members, you are guaranteed to have me spend time on your question. The best way to do that is to submit it ahead of time, which many of you did. If you're just a YouTube member and you like wander into the movie theater in the middle of a movie like a child, and you put your stuff in the chat, I'll try to get to it too. I'll try to get to everybody's questions in the chat. So let's dive right in. Let me first talk about this. Is this AMA going to be about the June 2nd release? Are you one of the guys who like went on the gear page and like did this like research project about how maybe the Maris pedal that's just got announced is my signature pedal? Are you that person? Because I guess Maris is putting out or just announced some like new reverb pedal, and they use some like graphic to announce it that looks like, you know, the mystical Trapper Keeper art of 1993. And then people were like, that looks like Cyber Attack graphics. And then people started going through my videos and like doing incredible work and like finding stuff I said about what my signature pedal was going to be that sounded like maybe it could be this. And then people found graphics in my videos that like had what they thought were elements of the graphic that Maris had just posted. And it was really amazing to see all that. I loved seeing it. All of it was completely wrong. I got nothing to do with that Maris pedal. That's got nothing to do with me. My signature pedal is nowhere near being ready to get announced. I'm sorry to tell you, we're not close to being done with the signature pedal. It's going great. I mean, it sounds amazing, but it's like not something that's gonna come out this summer. And it's not even with Maris. So all the incredible coincidences that people found, those were just coincidences. I mean, it was amazing to see like people connect the dots and be like, and then in this video, Cyber Attack said whatever, and that lines up with what Maris said on the announcement. It was all a coincidence. It's not my signature pedal. I don't even think I'm gonna get it. You know, I haven't been in touch with Maris about it. My signature pedal is with a different company. You know, it does speak to the power of anomaly hunting. Sorry to be a party pooper here. It is sort of amazing how much you can like sort of read between the lines and find whatever you want. You know what I mean? Try to keep that in mind the next time someone tries to tell you that the pyramids were built by aliens or whatever. But no, the point is that my signature pedal is done with a different brand completely. I will say this. In the course of all my YouTube comments, everything, people have guessed many different times what the signature pedal is going to be and who's making it. And some of the guesses have been right. I mean, a lot of them have been wrong, but some of them have been right too. People have guessed correctly. I'll say that. Okay. Oh, look at this. Do you ever use VSTs? I'm currently recording my stuff only through pedals, but recently I had a bit of a crisis with UAD Paradise Guitar Studio effects giving my signature tone, but VSTs more practical. I don't really use VSTs. I use a couple like reverbs and EQs, but that's not my main thing. Even my fake amp is usually the Strymon Iridium. I also like the fake Boss amp, the one that's like in the enclosure is this size, the Boss IR2, and I like the Milkman analog one. So even my fake amps are still pedals, and I'll use a couple VSTs. Like I said, a reverb and EQ generally. But no, I don't. That's not because I think software is bad or VSTs are bad. It's just because, you know, there's a million ways to do everything, and so the way I do it is with pedals. Anyway, thanks again for being a part of this. I got my Faucet water ready to go. I should have said that at the top. A big part of these live streams, if you're new to this, is just drinking Faucet water. If you're not sure what I mean when I say faucet water, you're overthinking it. It's just water from the faucet. That's it. You know, that's the kind of guy I am. That's the kind of live stream this is. You drink water from the sink. You don't need nicer shit than that. You don't need Gatorade. I think Gatorade is largely a myth. I like Gatorade, but you don't need, there's never going to be Cybertech supplements. You know what I'm saying? Like, I have real questions about anyone who ever needs that. I just feel like this is the thing. It's faucet water. Also, notice what a piece of shit my water bottle is. That's also part of this. Some of you guys might be remembering that for a lot of these live streams, I had like a nicer water bottle. It wasn't nice, but it was nicer than this. It was like glass. I dropped that and it broke. So now I'm using this piece of shit. It's like a Poland Spring with the label ripped off. But I feel like this is closer to the heart of the Cyber-Attack brand. It's good that the glass one broke. I mean, it sucked. I was really fucking mad. Also, there was water in it when it broke, so it's even worse. Like when the glass breaks, I know you have like glass shards and water and like the broom. The broom is like, I can't do this. I'm getting wet. It's a fucking nightmare. And I just dropped it like an idiot too. It was my own fault. It was terrible. But the point is that now I have this, and this is, I think, what I was always supposed to have. This is like the better thing to have. All right, let's try to get into some of these real questions. I'm seeing Melt Banana in a small bar next month. Oh, that's cool. I only know one song from the Bambi's Dilemma album. Should I dive into their discography beforehand, where to start, or just let it happen? I think just let it happen will be okay. What's the album I really know? What's the name of that fucking record? I know the one that has like the song Zero on it, and it's old. It's like from like 15 years ago or something. What's the name of the Melt Banana record I have? Man, it's a bad sign that now my live stream is just me Googling information. That's rough. Melt Banana Zero album. What's that one called? Fetch. That's right. Fetch. I never understood why it was called Fetch. That like name never meant anything to me. That's probably why I couldn't remember it. Or it's possible I have brain damage. Microplastics are very Cyber-Attack. See? This is why I love you guys. You get it. You know what I mean? You see this and you're like, yes. Microplastics. And look at this dude. What's up? So stoked for the double pedal new album release. Thank you for being stoked about it. My question. I know the Deco is your utilitarian double tracker pedal, but have you ever tried others? Yeah, I mean, anything that can, any like stereo delay can probably do a version of this. Like even the other Strymon delays can probably do a version of it. Also, like a stereo chorus can do it. You know, I'm sorry that I don't have like a better answer for this. I mean, I do think if the thing you care about is trying to simulate automatic double tracking, I think stereo matters for that. Although I feel like I don't really like calling it double tracking. Like that's not really what I think of when I'm doing with the Deco, because I feel like you should just really double track. Like that's what is cool. You know, just play the guitar part twice or sing it twice. That I feel like that's always cooler. So I think of it more as just like adding stereo width or stereo dimension. But maybe I'm being annoying. Maybe that's what everybody means. Yeah, I mean, the Deco's so easy that's just the one I use. I'm trying to think. I mean, I do love this. I have this right here. This isn't going to do like the echo part of it, but this is a nice stereo effect. Any opinions on King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard? Yeah, they're good. They're very good. My producer's super into them. Jeff Stanfield, the guy who's producing the next Cyber-Attack album and the first one. He loves them. So I spend a lot of time listening to them in his car. That might be my favorite thing about the band. They're a good band, but for me, like the emotional part of it that I care about the most is thinking about listening to that band driving around in my producer's car. That's to me what they mean the most. Just wanted to say that I love your recent videos on how to be creative. It's a nice change from all the gear-focused content. Still holding out for the return of Email Pro. Oh my God. I guess I have to explain what Email Pro is. Here's a true fan, everybody. for a while I did stand-up comedy a little bit, and I had a show actually. I had my own stand-up show in a theater called The Tank in New York, which is still a very cool theater, and they're still doing a lot of cool stuff. And the show was like sort of like I would just come out and like do stand-up for 10 minutes, and then for like an hour and a half, I would just write emails to people, and I would get the email addresses from the people in the audience. It was like sort of a crowd work show where people would be like, hey, can you write an email to my roommate? You know, he's like still has to pay the utility bill. So then I'd like write an email to that guy, and there was a projector so everyone could see what I was typing on my computer, and the email would just be sort of like, you know, hostile and funny. You know, I appreciate that you want Email Pro to come back. It worked a little bit because I you know, I wasn't like really famous, you know, and it's not like the Email Pro live streams were getting tens of thousands of views, and like, because let me explain. The show had a lot of privacy violations in it. You know what I mean? Like people's email addresses were like going on the screen, and I would send the email, and people would see people's email addresses, and like, you know, there was like privacy issues. And a couple times I tried to like schedule send or censor the email address or not send it during the show, and like it didn't work as good. You know, like people wanted people sort of craved the danger. So I needed to have the privacy violations for the show to work, but that's also fucked up, you know? So to be honest with you, I kind of feel like doing these live streams is what Email Pro became in a way, you know? The Email Pro show was my sense of humor. It was just like bullshitting about faucet water for a long time. You know, that's what Email Pro was. It was that plus privacy violations, and maybe it's better that I'm not doing that anymore. I mean, the other thing is that if I tried it now, like more people watch my stuff now, so like it would maybe really matter. You know, the consequences might be worse. Yo, Ivan, long time, first time, cool. I've never been able to hang out on long time fan, first time I've ever been able to hang out on stream. Now I understand. What is that really cool guitar you're playing that looks like a BC Rich Mockingbird? Is that a custom build? Thank you for this question. So this is a good example of a frequently asked question. I have answers to many frequently asked questions, including this one, in the description of this video. But the fact that I still get I've put the frequently asked questions in the video description of every live stream I've ever done. And the fact that the frequently asked questions continue to get asked is making me realize that nobody reads the answers to the frequently asked questions in the video description, even though they're there. So I'll answer this one. But for the rest of the show, if I ignore your question, it's a good chance that your question has been answered in the video description under the frequently asked questions section. That blue BC Rich looking guitar was custom made for me by a guy named Alex Glasser at Iron Horse Instruments. If you're in the tri-state area, you should check him out because he's good. I have a real BC Rich Mockingbird, a real one, like from the 80s. That I keep in E flat because I used it with my old band. I used to be in a band called Sweet Fix that lived in E flat world, and the Sweet Fix guitar was an orange BC Rich Mockingbird. It was a cool guitar. So then a while ago, I asked Alex to build me a guitar, and we traced that shape. That's what that guitar is. All right, let me start getting. Thank you everybody for being a part of this. Let me start going through the VIP questions from the people who joined my Patreon and submitted them ahead of time. This one is from, back to Manchester real quick. E Flat World hanging out with Slayer. Yes, exactly. Right. Yeah. Thank you for connecting the dots. Right. This is from my BFF, Kevin Brown. What's the biggest avoidable mistake you hear songwriters make? Could be a worn out lyrical idea, a sonic trope that time locks the song, or a general cliche that makes your teeth itch. You know, I'm reminded that like Kevin and I have similar taste, and it like kind of gets me because the things he threw out really are my answer to this question. Like the thing that I think bugs me the most is just like really, really worn out cliche lyrics that are just not interesting to think about at all. And I tried to think of an example for today, and the one I came up with is the part in Why Can't This Be Love when Sammy Hagar sings, only time will tell if we stand the time no, what is it? Only time will tell if we stand the test of time. And I think this is just a good example of a really bad lyric. It's actually like two cliches shoved together. Only time will tell. Only time will tell is just like a catchphrase we've already heard too many times for it to mean anything, you know? And then if we stand the test of time, that to me is just like not an interesting way to say it. I think everybody would benefit from trying never to ever use a catchphrase when you say anything. What would happen if you just force yourself to speak always like building your ideas from scratch, like never falling back on a saying you've heard someone else say ever. Like anytime you have to express an idea, like someone just slammed a door next door. That was weird. Sorry. Only ever expressing ideas, building them like from the original thought they came from, and like never falling back on stuff like stand the test of time. I feel like forcing yourself to do that, like that's how you become a person who can like express yourself a little bit more forcefully and a little bit more personally. I think it's like good training in general. And I think your lyric writing would benefit from it as well. And so like shoving cliches together to form lyrics like only time will tell if we stand the test of time is a good example of what you should just not be doing. And we've all heard it so many times that it's like there's nothing interesting there to think about. Like it's not doing the thing where you're like, oh, I wonder what he means. Like it's the opposite of that effect, you know? The really good writers coin their own cliches, right? Like I hate to do it, but running with the devil, you know what I mean? Like that's what the guy came up with who had Sammy Hagar's job before Sammy Hagar had it, right? Like the shit that came out of David Lee Roth's mouth sounded like cliches that have been around for a million years, but he made it up, you know? Can't you see me standing here with my back against the record machine? I love a lyric like that, you know? That's like a guy finding the exact right language to express who he is. Like there's no person has ever found words that match their personality more exactly than David Lee Roth finding the sentence, can't you see me standing here? I got my back against the record machine. You can see it. You know what I mean? It's like there is no record machine in the music video. Like you've never actually seen David Lee Roth's pose with his back against the record machine. It's like not on the album cover. It's not in the video. He never actually showed it to you, and yet we all have it in our mind. We can all see it, you know, because we all know how perfectly that lyric really is who that guy is. Anyway, so I think you get there by like forcing yourself to really just try to think through your ideas from beginning to end and not fall back on shit you've heard other people say. I mean, I'm also I told you a minute ago that I've like done stand-up in my life. I had a stand-up show for a while. Like this is the kind of shit you have to do if you learn to do, you're forced to do if you want to try that ever. Now having said that, you know, I feel a little bit bad going after Sammy Hagar. I mean, look, like David Lee Roth Van Halen is the version of that band that I prefer, and I prefer with all my heart. Like David Lee Roth Van Halen is literally my favorite band of all time. Sammy Hagar Van Halen is just like a rock band that I think was like adequate, you know? But Sammy Hagar has a good voice and he's a hardworking dude. He seems like he's easier to get along with than David Lee Roth is. And I'm not basing that on like what the brothers said or whatever. In fact, it seems like in the end they got along with Dave better anyway. I'm just saying like every interview I've ever seen with these guys, Sammy Hagar seems like a guy you can hang with. And David Lee Roth seems like a guy who's just obsessed with doing his yabba dabba do bullshit. You know what I mean? Like I'm sure I could actually like have a convo with Sammy Hagar in a way that I'm sure I could not with David Lee Roth, you know? But also, you know, his voice is held up better. And he's written lyrics that I think are okay. You know, I like the lyrics to Love Walks In. You know, so Love Walks In also sounds like a cliche, but there is one way that I think it can be cool to use. I mean, I don't want to say use cliches, but if you're going to use something that sounds a little bit like maybe that's a thing people have already said, I think the best way to do it is to then find an angle on it that is completely bonkers. And Sammy did it on Love Walks In because that song is about alien abductions. That's the crazy thing here, is that Love Walks In is about like aliens coming and like entering you and like teaching you about love. That's what that song is. It's like totally crazy that he wrote a song about getting if you've read his book, he takes this shit seriously. Like Sammy Hagar believes he's had encounters with aliens. You know, this is real shit to him. And he wrote a song about it. And I think it's cool that he didn't name the song I Was Abducted by Aliens. I think it's cool that he named the song Love Walks In. I like that. So if you're going to do it, at least like surprise people with what you're doing with it. And I think the lyrics to Right Now are okay. You know, they're like serious in a way that I sometimes have questions about, but I think they're okay. And I even sort of like the lyrics to Mine All Mine. So he can do stuff that's okay. All right. Okay, cool. Well, that was a long answer to that question. That was like my first real one. All right. Real world only challenge, right? See, he gets it. He totally gets it. Okay, cool. Let's keep going. What is your favorite fuzz pedal? I have a video called the Fuzz Tier List, and the video that I put at the top of that video is my favorite one. Favorite overdrive pedal. This one is harder. You know, it might be the Barbershop by Fairfield Circuitry. It might be that one. I also really like the 5150, like the Eddie Van Halen signature pedal distortion. The thing I like about the 5150 is that like any clean amp that you set to be neutral, and then you like any backline amp that is just sort of like, well, this is the amp that you're supposed to use to gig with or whatever. You could show up to like any gig with a backline or any rehearsal studio and just pick the cleanest amp and then use the 5150 distortion through it, and you'll sound fine. It'll sound like a really great, really intense distortion. And I like how reliable that is. It's a very intense distortion though. The Fairfield Circuitry Barbershop gives you less like extreme distortion. But the thing is that the older I get, the more I realize you don't need as much as you think you do. You know, less distortion. If you can just nail the playing, less distortion is cool. So the Barbershop might be my favorite in the end. Syntax Air XP or 2. So this XP is like has more stereo reverb, which is great. But the 2 has the sequencer that has the weird random flickering tremolo feature. It's called Space. If you use the sequencer in the 2, it'll be this like stuttering tremolo effect that I love that has like an inconsistent weird flicker to it. And the inconsistent flickering tremolo is a sound I love, and there are not many pedals that can do it. The Syntax Air XP can't even do it. The Chroma Console can. So you have to choose between those things which thing you care about more, and then choose it based on that. All right. Okay, cool. Let me get through some more of the pre-submitted ones here. All right. This is going to be a rant. I'm just telling you right now. The worst possible time to like get my attention is now, because I'm about to start a long rant from one of my Patreon people. Dan it 2XL. Having a debate among friends, and so I wish you were here. The question is, worst unintentionally bad song. The front runner was The Boys Are Back in Town. Build your defense. I know that this guy knows that I love the song The Boys Are Back in Town. That's why he's coming to me with this. There's a lot I have to say right at the top of this. Okay. So first of all, I like you, Dan it. You're cool. We've had our back and forths on these. I know you're cool. We even like connected over playing rage cards. So like that's a bond that'll last the rest of my life. But I got to tell you, like, I'm only putting this question on the screen because you're one of my Patreon guys. I worry sometimes that I don't take good enough care about my Patreon guys. I feel bad about that sometimes. Like every month I take your money. How much am I really doing for any of you? You know, I get stressed about that. But now I'm not, because me putting this question on the screen is really being nice, because I just do not think this is a good question. I really don't. And like there's a couple, before we even get to the issue that we're even questioning whether The Boys Are Back in Town is a good song, I also don't think you or anyone in this conversation even knows what you're talking about, because you're talking about unintentionally bad. Like everything that's bad is unintentionally bad. Like the interesting question would be, what is an intentionally bad song? You know, I tried to think of some, like, who are the people that are trying to write bad songs on purpose? Like, that's the shorter list. Everything else is people just trying to write songs and then they turn out bad. So you guys just want to talk about bad songs. And I think by adding this notion that that The Boys Are Back in Town isn't bad, it's unintentionally bad, to me, it just feels like an attempt to be pedantic. You guys are just like trying to add these little distinctions that are meaningless to sound smart while you take a shit on like some guys who did some honest work and wrote a masterpiece. So, you know, if you really wanted to find an interesting angle here, the question would be, what are the truly intentionally bad songs? Is that like Cars for Kids? You know, or like Weird Al Yankovic, or these people who are trying to do intentionally bad work? I don't know. I don't even really want to take it on, because like I don't want to have to try to guess what someone was trying to do. I just want to judge the work. You know, I assume everybody was trying to be serious and everyone was trying to do the best work they did, and then I judge it based on that. You know what I mean? That's why I am the person that I am. Okay, so then. See, this guy, Kevin Brown, again, The Boys Are Back in Town is an unimpeachable work of art. That is right, okay? So I think if you don't like The Boys Are Back in Town, in preparation for this, because as soon as I saw the question, I was just like, oh, Jesus Christ, this could take over the whole live stream if I'm not careful. I tried to just like really imagine who is the person who doesn't like this song. And I guess the one sort of objection I could understand is that like you just don't like rock music. I guess that's the problem here, right? Like somebody wrote a song that's about a bunch of guys riding around on motorcycles, getting into fights with each other, you know, hanging down at the Dino's Bar and Grill, being fucking knuckleheads. The song sounds like that's what it's about. If you don't like that, that's okay. Like you can have your own taste, but your taste is that you just don't like rock music. You don't think guys in leather jackets acting tough is cool, you know, but they're not really tough. They're actually kind of like wounded, you know. That's the subtext of the song. Like I've always understood that the subtext here was that we're talking about like Vietnam vets, based on when the song came out, and also based on the fact that I think originally the song was called G.I. Joe is Back in Town, which I think is hilarious. The song was almost called G.I. Joe is Back in Town. And I don't hate that version. I mean, The Boys Are Back in Town is better. It became what it was supposed to become. But G.I. Joe is Back in Town, I think this is about the return of various shell-shocked American soldiers returning from Vietnam. And now what do we do? You know, I always thought that's what the song was about. And but I think it's cool that they never quite put it out there. The other thing I like is that the Thin Lizzy guy, Phil Lynott, was like obsessed with America. He just could not get over it. Like the cowboy song, the West, you know, the frontier, the gunslinger. Like he could not get the fuck over it. And I think that like I like something about the way that not American dude was like so obsessed with the comic book version of America. It's not because I'm like the most red, white, and blue dude that ever lived. It's not that I'm like, well, there goes a true patriot. I'm not coming at it from that angle. I just think that he he sort of was seduced by the sort of mythical notion of the United States, and the way he would depict it and the way he would write songs about it is the kind of thing that, like, I think the songs have a vividness and like a true belief and like a sincerity to them that you only get from someone who really believes. Like, I'm sort of talking about the fact that, like, to me, it's the same thing that, like, The Exorcist, the screenplay was written by like a real Catholic, like a guy who maybe really believed in exorcisms, you know? And like Apocalypse Now was written by, the screenplay, of course, was written by the guy that Walter Sobchak is based on. What the fuck is this guy's name? I can never remember anyone's name anymore. What's the name? John Milius. John Milius wrote Apocalypse Now. John Milius was like a super jingoistic right-wing dude who was like, you know, not only was the war justified, we didn't go hard enough. And like, that was not what Francis Ford Coppola's agenda was. But I think it's cool, and the movie benefits from the fact that, like, Francis Ford Coppola made this anti-war movie, but inside it, embedded from the beginning, was the kernel of true belief from the screenwriter. You know, that kind of contradiction, like, that's valuable. And I think and like, there's a version of that that The Boys Are Back in Town benefits from. Cause like, here's this guy who's like trying to write this sympathetic portrait of these vets coming back from Vietnam, and like, say what you will about the war, that, you know, the fact that he had a sympathy and I'm just going to say it, attraction to America and American culture, like, it makes the song have a precision that is the opposite of what you get from a lyric like "Only time will tell if we stand the test of time." Right? Okay. I also think that one of the cool things about the song is that it's being narrated by a guy who was not in the crowd. Like, the narrator of the song is the guy who's saying, "Hey, everybody, the boys are back in town." He's not in the boys. He's the guy who's like excited about the boys, which is like a less cool position. You know, it's like the song is being narrated by Milhouse, you know? And that's a cool choice. Like, the fact that you're now seeing through the eyes of the guy who's seeing the boys, it makes it more sophisticated. And like, I feel like the real subject of the song is the guy who didn't go to war and who's not as tough and is like conflicted about that and is working through his feelings of conflict by just sort of like worshiping and romanticizing these guys. You know, I do think that's a thing that happens, right? Like, people who are not in it get insecure about not being in it, and then they have to overcorrect for not being in it, and that overcorrection can go a couple different ways. And one of the ways is, wow, those guys are the coolest guys in the world, and I'm going to try to be as cool as they are by being the number one expert on how cool they are. I think the song is like, could be read as being a little bit critical, or maybe critical is too strong a word, but taking an interest in this as its subject, which I just think is like, these are sophisticated choices as a composer, you know? So there's that. And then there's the fact that like Thin Lizzy swung really hard for a band that used as much distortion as they did. You know, Thin Lizzy was like a hard rock band. Like, you know, they would melt your face off if they felt like it, but they had good swing feel in a way that I associate with very few bands that are in that genre. Of course, Van Halen also had it, maybe had it better than anyone else ever had it. Jimi Hendrix Experience had it. Mitch Mitchell was like a real ferocious rock drummer who had good swing feel. And like Alex Van Halen, was maybe a little bit overshadowed by the fact that he was playing drums for one of the greatest guitar players that has ever been born. But I put Thin Lizzy in this small category of hard rocking bands that were like really rock bands, but could swing and have it not be corny and not be cheesy. Also, for a band using that much distortion, it's cool that The Boys Are Back in Town uses 4-part harmony in its chords, you know, the minor seventh chords, all those jangly little chords. Not a lot of guys can make that sound good going through a Marshall amp, but they did. You know, these are accomplishments. So if you can't anyone who can't appreciate that, like, that's fine, but you just don't like rock music. So, go spend the rest of your life listening to Yo-Yo Ma, and like, don't make it our problem that you are oblivious to Thin Lizzy. All right. Let me now go look at what I missed in the last 15 minutes. What are your favorite things about where you are in New York? So I live in Harlem. I like that Harlem is still a neighborhood. I think Manhattan is like almost out of neighborhoods. Like most of Manhattan is like Chipotle's and Dwayne Reed's, So I like that. I like that there's good musicians around. If you need to like hire someone to play for you, they'll be good. I like that. And I like that it's a big city. At my gym, like people are good. Like anytime you go anywhere, like there'll be people who are good at the thing you're going to see, because there's a lot of people that live here and they're competitive, So I like that. And I like that it's close to New Jersey, because I miss New Jersey and I love New Jersey. I still go to New Jersey a lot. So, how is that enough? There's probably more stuff I could think of that I like about New York. Yeah, let's hold it there for now. All right, let me keep going. Are you from New Jersey? Yes, I'm from Bergen County. I think that, I think/hope that maybe explains a lot about me. All right, I got a question earlier in the chat from someone saying, could you explain my own history with original music and stuff? And now's a great time to do that. Oh, this is funny. What's your favorite thing about the Port Authority? LOL. Yeah, that's an LOL question. Now that I live in New York, I don't really go to the Port Authority anymore. I used to do it. I used to take the bus into the city, for a while they had Auntie Anne's, like the pretzel, the mall pretzel thing, and like I like those pretzels. I don't think they have one there anymore. So in those years, it would have been that. It's hard to think of something else after that. I will say this: there's the pharmacy that's right next to the Port Authority. It's a Walgreens, a Dwayne Reed Walgreens, and like one thing I like about that pharmacy is that like when you walk in, it just seems like a small, cramped Manhattan Dwayne Reed. Like a lot of the pharmacies here are just like uncomfortable to be in, and you're bumping into everybody and everything's locked up anyway, and it sucks. But then if you like walk into the pharmacy, then it like opens up and becomes like, it has like a bigger grocery store section than most pharmacies. And I know that no pharmacy has a grocery section. I know that like buying groceries at a pharmacy is like grotesque. I know, I get it. I'm not saying it's like real groceries, but the like fake artificial, pharmacy groceries that they like try to convince you are real. This pharmacy has like a huge area of that. And I think it's funny that you like walk in and then it opens up on this huge bounty and you're like, whoa, like maybe I could get anything here. So I like that about I like that about the Port Authority. What are your settings for the EHX Tactic K for that sick example when you combo with the Benson soundbars? Do you have both pedals? Did you try to do it? I feel like it doesn't make sense to ask this question unless you have both pedals. And if you have both pedals, I feel like you would benefit from just trying to find the settings yourself and using your ear, even if it takes a long time. Like it's not impossible. You could do it. My guitar teacher used to say this all the time when I would like bring in something to learn, or I'd be like, is that playable? Like, how did he do it? And my guitar teacher would always say like, well, he's got 10 fingers and we've got 10 fingers. So why wouldn't it be playable? Like you can find the sound, but I don't just want to be antagonistic. So the crucial thing is that you have to put the EHX in poly mode. Even if you're not really taking advantage of the polyphonic mode, pushing the button, the pedal, that polyphonic mode generates lots of weird artifacts. just by being in polyphonic mode. Even if you play monophonically in polyphonic mode, it like there's a difference. And those artifacts are like 90% of what made that setting so cool. I mean, those artifacts then going into the Benson Stonk box. So that now you should really be able to do it on your own. Okay, back to somebody said before, what's my background as a guy playing in bands and stuff. I'm going to do that now because I got a pre-submitted question from my old pal Razark. Why did Sweet Fix break up? Did you immediately know that you wanted to go solo? All right, so Sweet Fix was the band I was in before Cyber Attack. Sweet Fix was the band I formed in college. Then I stayed in it after college. I like moved to New York while I was in Sweet Fix. I was like going for it. You know, I thought Sweet Fix was going to be the band I was in for the rest of my life. It was like when I fantasized about having a music career and being successful and famous, I fantasized about Sweet Fix being successful and famous and Sweet Fix being my music career. I was the main songwriter in that band. I was not the singer though. We had a lead singer, Tommy Walker. It was fun to have a lead singer. If you like my stuff, you would probably like Sweet Fix. I mean, I was the main creative force in that band. We collaborated. Like the other guys brought a lot to the table, but like, you know, the songs were either co-written or I wrote them. But even when they were co-written, I was in there. So if you like my sensibility, you would like Sweet Fix. And the stuff is still on Spotify and everything. So you might be into it. It's a little bit like if Cyber Attack was a little more normal and had someone else singing who was like a real lead singer. Like when I sing on the Cyber Attack stuff, it's like you're hearing from the guy who wrote the song. And I think I can sound good. Like I'm not knocking my voice, but the lead singer of Sweet Fix was like a little bit more of like the classic frontman energy. You know, you either know what I mean or I don't. But if you listen to any Sweet Fix song for like 5 seconds, I think you'll pick up on what I mean. And it was fun to have a singer that could like sing shit I couldn't sing. You know, now if I write anything, I have to be able to sing it. I didn't really worry about that in Sweet Fix. Like that guy just made it work. So that was cool. So anyway, the band we were a New York band. You know, we were starting to do good. You know, we like played the Bowery Ballroom. We played B.B. King's. We opened for Sebastian Bach. We played at Six Flags. You know, we played the Mercury Lounge. We played the Highline Ballroom. Like we played all the play. We headlined some of these places. You know, we sold tickets. Then we were in a band right when like crowdfunding was invented, and then like now crowdfunding is like what you do if you're in a horrible car accident and you have like a medical emergency and you need to raise $600,000 or you're gonna die. That's what crowdfunding is now. At first, it was like, hey, if you're in a band, you could do crowdfunding to make your next album. So we did crowdfunding, and we raised this was 2013, 2014. We raised $40,000. You know, we raised $40,000, and that was like a little over 10 years ago. So it's even more than $40,000 in real dollars. So you know, it felt like things were happening. You know, people, it would seem like we had potential. We made a really cool record with the $40,000. And then, you know what happened? We spent the $40,000. We made the record. It's called Golden Age. You can still hear it. We didn't spend it all on the record. We also saved some to try to invest in like PR or whatever. You know, maybe we made some of the wrong choices there, but we invested the money in the band. And basically what happened was, the record sounded really cool. Again, it's called Golden Age. I stand by it. I think it's an awesome record. I'm really proud of it. I'm glad it's still on Spotify. And I shred on it. I mean, you know, if you want to hear me shred, with using maybe, I don't want to say I didn't use effects because I did, but like there's shredding where it's just like me playing a SG going into a Marshall amp and that's it, and I'm shredding. So if you like ever wished I did that more, part of the reason I don't do it 24/7 is because like there's a record where I did it, and the record is called Golden Age and it's by a band called Sweet Fix. But anyway, We finished the record, and the record turned out really cool. And then we like tried to do the stuff you're supposed to do with a record out. And then like, we like called in some of the favors and like had some people pitch us to the people we thought it was time for us to get pitched to. We like scratched off some of the lotto tickets that we'd been saving. It was like time to sort of like just all the shit we kept in our back pocket. Like maybe someday we could get Peter Mensch to listen to us, Q Prime, whatever, like that kind of stuff. We like pulled the trigger on those. And the feedback was like, this is cool, but some people said no. And some people were like, let's see what happens. Keep us posted. We want to see how you develop. So we got some like respectful maybes and some no's. And then it's like, well, then what do you do? We just spent all the money. We were out of money at this point. The record was out. We'd already released the entire album. So we had like we had sort of ran out of premierable assets, as they're called in the biz. So in order to generate some more premierable assets, we were either going to have to like raise money again or make money from shows or put in our own money. And it felt a little bit like not everybody in the band was willing to just make the sacrifices involved in any combination of those three things. It felt a little bit like the whole thing had run its course. So it was like kind of a natural stopping point in a way. So then the next part of this question is, did you know you wanted to go solo? In fact, I knew that I did not want to go solo. I wanted to be in a band. I liked bands. The reason my solo project is called Cyber Attack is that I think band names are cooler. You know what I mean? I didn't want to be like in the Ivan Anderson quintet. You know what I mean? That sounds dumb. I've always thought it's cooler to just say like, I'm in Slayer. You know what I mean? That's what I wanted to be able to say. So I named the band Cyber Attack, and the very, very, very early version of Cyber Attack, I was like writing the songs that would become Cyber Attack songs, but I couldn't find the singer. I had a couple people I tried collaborating with, but like it wasn't happening. But I was still writing songs, but I didn't want to have to sing them. So Cyber Attack began performing as like this instrumental jazz fusion thing. If you go back into the early days of my channel, my YouTube channel, this YouTube channel, there's like live footage from the dawn of Cyber Attack that's like me playing in a band with 3 other guys and just like playing live instrumental improvised jazz fusion. And it was like it's a different thing than what Cyber Attack became, but it was named Cyber Attack. Like if you went to Rockwood Music Hall in 2016 and you saw Cyber Attack, that's what it was. So I was trying to make that work. And if you're trying to do that, it's like, I think I can play and I think I can hang even in that world, but you're sort of like, like you have to be. I had to sort of like beat Jeff Beck at his own game. Do you know what I mean? And like, you need self-belief to do anything in music, but like for me to wake up day after day after day and think like, yep, what I'm trying to do is beat. I was just like, I don't really know. Whereas I was still writing songs that had lyrics and I thought they were good songs. So I was like, why am I doing these fucking jams? So every time I would audition a singer, I would like play him the song I wrote and I would have to like sing it to be like, here's how it goes. See what you can do. And every time I sang it, I would be like, well, I kind of liked how I did it. I kind of liked how I did it. And then one day I realized like, if I auditioned for myself only as a singer, like if I walked in, I was like, all right, I'm going to sing these songs. By the way, I can write songs like this. This is what I write. These are the melodies. These are the words. I wrote it. I can sing it. There's limitations to how I can sing. I can't do everything your old singer could do. Freddie Mercury Jr., I ain't. But I can write like this, and I'm like a dependable guy, and I give a fuck. And like, I will join this band and be as devoted to it as you are. And I will like, it'll be the meaning of my life. And like, I will invest and sacrifice everything needed forever to make it work. I would have hired that guy. So I hired myself and started taking singing lessons and like took it on. So let me back up a second. This dude, any tips for singing and playing guitar and how not to sound weird? Dude, this is literally my least favorite thing about music. Like you guys have heard me cry about singing before. If I don't even have to play, I'm over it. I can do it now. I'm trying not to cry about having to be a singer anymore. I can be a singer. You know what I mean? Like if I go to a karaoke night, like I can do it. People don't say like, wow, you sing good for a guitar player. They're like, wow, you're a singer. You know what I mean? It all comes crashing down when I have to sing and play at the same time. I hate it so much. I just fucking hate it. It's so terrible. There's the tricks I've been told that I can sense work, but you need to really, really, really take them on to make it work. One is to like notate the entire thing you're trying to sing and play at the same time. Like if there's a really hard part where like the playing is funky and you have to sing, but you're like, they're two different things. If you like write both parts on music paper, I'm not even good at reading and writing music, by the way, but I am minimally adequate so that if I know what something sounds like and I see it written, I can see how it is what it is. So if you can like get someone, I used to have my singing teacher do this for me. I would ask her to like transcribe my melody and my guitar part. You know, I would like, this was like part of the lesson. I would be like, could you please just, cause she was good at music. Because you just transcribe what I'm trying to do. She would like transcribe the parts on like the same system or whatever, like a left hand, right hand piano part situation. It's like, you know, written, notated together. And then I would like scrub through it like 1/16th note at a time, being like, all right, beat 1, nothing. E of 1, the guitar plays this. And of 1, I start to sing. Of 1, nothing. You know, like super slow motion, scrubbing through 16th notes at a time, seeing it. That's one way to do it. That's hard though. It's just hard. The quick and dirty ways I developed when I couldn't bring myself to do it the hard way I just described would be dumb down the guitar part. I mean, if one thing has to go, you know, everybody looks at the singer. Everybody judges the singing. Everybody, the good melody is what gets stuck in people's head, you know? When people are like, what was that song that goes like this? Then they sing it, right? So the singing has to be the priority. So dumb down the guitar part or give it to someone else, like hire a musician to play it for you. If something has to go, sacrifice the playing. And then what I would do is like when it's solo time, I would really fucking go for it. You know what I mean? Like the Cyber Attack live shows, once I started singing and playing, like I would like use effects, play one note, have the pedal do all the shit for me. So I'm like just playing one note at a time and like the pedal's doing all the work. You know, now I'm just trying to sing. And then when it's solo time, I would like just shred. And so this might have just been me doing like my own therapy, but the idea was like, I'll make back the loss in the guitar playing during the singing on the solos. That's basically how I handled it. Do you ever dabble in other genres? Yeah, I mean, I think the answer is clearly yes. Like in the video description of every pedal video on my channel, including this live stream that you're watching right now, there's a link to look at a list I have of every song I've covered in every single pedal video I've ever made. And like, all I can tell you is that like, I think you'd have a hard time finding a genre that's not represented on that list. You know what I mean? That's a list where like Ghost Town DJs, Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons, Slayer, Carla Bley, and Van Halen all happily coexist. All right, cool. Have you ever tried Red Panda pedals? Yes, I had the Bit Crusher for a while. I wrote a review for Tape Out magazine of the Red Panda Bit Crusher and also made a video of it when I had it, but it's old. It's on my channel from a long time ago. But if you look for it, I think you'll find it. Oh, you meant my original music. Yeah, I mean, I think my original music is also kind of, I mean, I guess it's rock, but rock is a big genre. I don't really know. This is going to come up for another question I got later. I don't really think anymore like I want to do a song that it would be this genre. You know, I don't really think like, man, I'd really just love to do like a good old fashioned reggae song. You know what I mean? Give me some reggae. You're not going to hear those words come out of my mouth anytime soon. I just think in terms of the shit that I would want to hear, and then it's the genre of what I want to hear, and it ends up sounding like what I do. Sorry if that's, like a dodge of a question. That list never loads for you? Fuck, are you serious? That's horrifying. You've clicked on the list of every of every song I've ever clicked on. You know, sometimes it's a Bitly link. So sometimes Bitly has an annoying landing page that's like an ad for Bitly, but you can don't get psyched out by the annoying Bitly diversion. Like click on the link and then there'll be sometimes you have to click on another thing like, yes, proceed to the site. You'll get there. But that's horrifying to me that you're not able to load that. I spent a lot of time trying to make that list really accurate and cool. Were you referencing Axl Rose with Give Me Some Reggae? Yes, I was. You know what I'm talking about. The knocking on heaven's door from GNR Live. Yeah, of course I was. What kind of man would I be if that didn't live in my head at all times? All right. There's another question I want to get to. Oh, here's a quick one that I can do. I'd love to bang out some quick ones. How many pedals do you have? From Danny Hill. I don't know. It might be less than you think because I'll sell the ones I don't use. It's definitely less than 100. It might be less than 50. I don't know how many it is. I guess I could have counted in preparation for this. Sorry about that. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe less than 50. Definitely less than 100. All right. There's a specific one I want to get to now that I think it's time for. Yes, this from... This is happening again. It's your time if you're here. Boss need to get you sponsored by their slicer. Dude, they did. They paid me to make that video, and they gave me the slicer for free. I mean, I'm sorry to disillusion you, but I got paid for that video and for other things I did for Boss. So thank you, but we did it. In a time where it's almost impossible to have a new sound, how much should one put into finding a sound that's their own? Let's say someone likes Elliott Smith and starts writing songs inspired by Elliott Smith. What to you is the difference between something ending up derivative, bad, or inspired by, good? All right, I'm gonna address this very straightforwardly. By this is happening again. All right, I've good news and bad news for you. And it's the same piece of news. The good news and the bad news is the same piece of news, which is that you got something completely wrong. It's this. In a time when it's almost impossible to have a new sound, how much should you put into finding a sound that's their own? Yeah, that's just wrong. You're just wrong about this. And I'm like, sorry, I'm not trying to be harsh, but like the good news here is that like the reason you've been struggling is because you got this so wrong. Here's a tough situation to be in, which is not the tough situation you are in. Ready? It's hard to do everything right and then not get the result you want. That sucks. That's how I felt when Sweet Fix broke up. We raised $40,000. We'd like open for famous people. We'd headline some big shows. People liked us. People who knew things, said things like, I believe in you. Feels like I did everything right, and I didn't get the outcome I wanted. The band broke up. That's a tough spot to be in because you did everything right and you still didn't get what you want. The good news for you is that if you feel like that, it's not because you did everything right. You just have to go back and start over again and fix the part you got wrong. And then I think you're going to get very different results because you fixed the part you got wrong. And the part that you got wrong is when you said it's almost impossible to have a new sound. I don't know where you got that idea. It's not impossible. I mean, if it's impossible now, it was always kind of impossible. Everybody who ever invented anything had to invent it. You see what I'm saying? So all you have to do is what everyone always did, which is that they invented it, you know? Maybe there might be certain things where it got invented and then you could do the sort of like quick next gen version of it and get in right there, and like your invention is just the revision of the thing you love. It might be too late for that. It might be too late to sort of like take macho late 70s glam and hard rock and update it the way The Darkness did. You know, that it might be too late for that. You know what I'm saying? It might be too late to sort of take like funk music and electro disco and like update it and inject it with a sense of humor and a really, really sort of geeky encyclopedic attention to detail and invent that update to it the way like Wolfpack did. It might be too late to do that. So maybe that's how you got this idea that it's like almost impossible to develop your own sound. But dude, who cares? Like, you could just invent a brand new thing. That's what you should be trying to do. So how much should one put into finding a sound that's their own? All of. The answer is all. The answer is all. How much should one put into finding a sound? All. You guys remember the scene in Terminator 1? Here we go. When the Terminator goes to the gun store and he's like asking for all these crazy guns, and he like wants the laser sight, and he wants the shotgun, and he wants the auto loader, you know, he wants all this shit. And then he gets so carried away that he asks for some fucking plasma rifle in the 40-watt range because he doesn't know that hasn't been invented yet. And the gun guy is like, we don't have anything like that. But he's like, all right, then just give me another Cougar Magnum or whatever. And then at the end, the gun shop guy is like, so which one do you want? And then Terminator says, all. Okay? That's the answer to your problem too. All, right? When the Terminator just looks at the guy and says the answer is all, that's what I want you to say to yourself. I want you to go in the mirror and look in the mirror and say to yourself this sentence: how much should one put into finding a sound that's their own? And then say all. And if it's like this is uncomfortable for you, then just watch the scene in the Terminator I'm talking about. It's very important that you like internalize this, okay? I think this is all there is. Just make up your own fucking thing. It's going to be hard. Like, I know that out there's like recreational hobbyist guitar players for whom this is not what they care about. You know, they just want to be able to play along to Crazy Train or whatever. And I get it. Like, I cared about being able to play along to Crazy Train too. I get it. It's fun. That's cool. But I'm not a hobbyist. Like, I'm not a recreational guy. Like, I'm a professional musician who had to like not give up a lot of times when I wanted to give up, and I have a career. So I'm never going to relate to the like recreational guitar player, and the advice I give and the kind of videos I make are just not for that. So even if you are not planning on having a music career, even if it's really just recreational for you, you can still try to go after it like the real version. Do you know what I mean? Like, some people want to do Tae Bo, and that's cool. You know, if Tae Bo is like helping people get in shape and it's like improving people's lives, and like Tae Bo helps people, you know, lower their heart rate and like get a better whatever, cool, that's good. You know what I mean? I don't want to do Tae Bo. I just want to do real boxing. Even though I'm never going to be a pro guy at my gym, I don't want them to show me the like junior varsity version of the thing we're trying to do. Like, just show me the real version and I'll just do the best I can with the real version. That's when I give advice to guitar players, that's what I'm doing. It's not the Tae Bo version. It's like, this is what I think is the real version, and you can try it, and I wish you the best. If it's not, if you decide, well, maybe I'm not trying to be a career musician, I just want to be a musician the way a real musician would be, you know, that's fine. You know what I mean? That's cool. And if that's not what you want to do, that's okay. You know, maybe you can go hang out with those guys that don't understand why Thin Lizzy is good. You know, there's a YouTube channel for you too. It's just not this one. You know, you just go hang out with those dudes and listen to the Bobby McFerrin Yo-Yo Ma collaboration. And that, you know what I mean? I wish you the best. Okay? In the meantime, I think you should just invest everything in trying to have an original sound. How do you do that, though? Well, I like your follow-up question, because I can give you some much more practical advice starting now, using your follow-up question as an example. Let's say someone likes Elliott Smith and starts writing songs inspired by Elliott. What do you see the difference between something ending up derivative or inspired by? Cool. All right, I have very straightforward advice for you on this too. The difference is how detailed and how specific you can get with your listening and your observations about Elliott Smith, and how in touch you can get with what you like about Elliott Smith and with what Elliott Smith is doing. Like how strongly can you like perceive all the things you like about Elliott Smith? And the smaller the things, the better this is going to go. Here's what I mean. If your understanding of the music of Elliott Smith is that he writes sad acoustic songs that are beautiful and sort of make you feel like killing yourself, I think you're off to a rough start. That's what everybody thinks if you ask them to form an opinion about Elliott Smith in 2 seconds. That's like the free space, you know? If that's the best resolution you can get on what you like about Elliott Smith, I think if you then try to write something based on him, it's going to sound derivative. You got to be able to form a more interesting and a smaller and more particular observation about Elliott Smith, and then use those things. You know, I like Elliott Smith. I might not know about him as much as you do. So this next part is going to be off the top of my head. You see if you can do a better job than what I'm about to do. I know he also used a lot of tunings. Now, one thing to do would be to copy the tunings. You know, but then you're using his tunings, right? So what can you find about how he learned those tunings? Did he invent them? Did he make up his own tunings? Is there anything out there about how Elliott Smith arrived at the tunings he chose? Can you look at all that stuff and then invent your own tunings? When he did his own tunings, was he using open strings a lot, or was he just using the tunings because it changed his fingerings? You know, there's a distinction there. Sometimes the tuning just lets you use open strings as drones. Sometimes it changes what kind of shapes you can form with your hand. Those are two very different roads to go down. See what you can learn about the difference there. Which one did Elliott Smith do? Which one did he not do? If you try to do the one he did not do you like it, or do you like the one he did? You know, there's something there. Other more intricate observations about Elliott Smith. A lot of his progressions were like a weird number of bars. He'd write a chord progression that's like 13 chords. You know what I mean? Everybody is like ready to deal with a 12-bar blues. The Elliott Smith shit would not be 12 bars. It would be a weird number of bars. But it would sound natural. You know, it wasn't some like look at me progressive rock bullshit. When he did it, you don't notice that it's a weird number of bars. Study that. You know, why is it that he could do things that sounded weird that then also sounded natural? You know, it's a little bit like writing a song that's naturally in 7. You know, Money by Pink Floyd, or some song that just sounds like, of course, that's how that should go. And then when you count it out, it's an odd number. Salisbury Hill being another example. Elliott Smith could do that with like the number of bars in a progression. There's more shit he was doing that is on this level of like, oh, that's interesting that that's in there. You got us be vacuuming this shit up. You know, one thing I used to love about bringing in songs to have my guitar teacher show them for me is that as he was listening to it, he'd be like, oh, that's interesting that they did that there. Like, he was always doing this. He was just like, he had this like net off the back of the boat, and everywhere it went, he was just like trying to catch stuff in the net, being like, oh, that's cool. That, like, I remember once I brought in The Day I Tried to Live by Soundgarden. I was like, can you show me how to play this song? And I'd already heard that song a bazillion times. I thought it was cool. You know, I already knew that I liked it. And he was like, oh, yeah, this one. Yeah, this is cool. And then I remember at the end of the first chorus, it then goes back to the verse and it gets super quiet, you know? And then it just goes right into the verse, you know, where he's like, the words you say, you know, but it's super tight after the huge explosion of the chorus. And I remember him saying like, oh, I like how it just got quiet right there. And I'd never noticed that that was cool. It's like a very obvious thing. But he just said, oh, it's cool that it just got quiet right there. And like, it's just this tiny obvious thing that I'd never noticed. And it is cool. And he said that. And I was like, man, like, I want to notice stuff like that all the time. You know, we delete most of what we experience. I already liked the song. I'd already heard it do that innumerable times. You got to start hearing this shit and noticing that you're hearing it. You know, write it down if it helps. Try to stockpile as many tiny, it's cool that it got quiet there type events in the music you like. And then, you know, as you amass more and more of these little tricky details that are the things you like, just try to create stuff based on those. Don't try to imitate Elliott Smith. Try to just try to use all those little tricks you learned. And if you learn enough of those tricks, and sooner or later, I think you would benefit from not doing this to Elliott Smith, but doing this to all the music you hear at all times constantly, including music you hate. If you just then try to use all those little things that you noticed, I think it won't be derivative anymore. I think it'll be original. You know, you're gonna have to stick with it though. It's not enough to just sort of like walk into the Duane Reade and hear the music and whatever. You have to listen to it. And I also think like don't ask AI to tell you. Don't just listen to it for yourself. You know what I mean? People, it is hard. You think it's almost impossible to have a new sound. It's not almost impossible. It's only hard. That's the good news and the bad news is that it's not impossible. It's just only hard, right? But people did it. People have been able to do it. So you can do it, right? I did it. I'm not a genius. You know what I mean? Like I wasn't a prodigy. I couldn't do shit just because I picked up a guitar and it came to me. You know what I mean? I had to take a lot of lessons. I also had to, I was lucky that I was able to hang on and like, you know, squeeze a couple pennies together long enough to get another shot. And then, you know, Sweet Fix broke up. My old band broke up. I like eked out a living for as long as I could. And then it started happening. So all this is to say, you know, don't think something is impossible just because it's hard. If you're watching, oh, look at this. If you're watching live chat, you don't see the description. I understand. You might just have to be a power user and open like another window or something like that. You know, get some tabs going. There are ways to do it if you want it bad enough. All right, cool. Look at this. Thank you, Zach. I appreciate it. Get a good guitar teacher. That's what I did. I am his teacher. I do teach. There's a link to do my Zoom lessons with me in the video description if you want. Yeah, I agree with this. Also, try to figure out songs by ear the closest you can without looking on YouTube. Yes, I can't stress this enough. My guitar teacher would do that. I think I've talked about this before. You know, my guitar teacher had a great ear. He would just listen to stuff and figure it out and then show me. It was fun to watch him do it. And I asked him once, like, you don't ever look up transcriptions or tabs? This was before AI, by the way. It was before the existence of things like, you know, you could just type it in and get the answer. But they would sell like transcription books at Guitar Center. You could go to Guitar Center and there'd be like a bookshelf and you could like buy the book that has the transcription of like every Metallica song ever published. So I was like, you don't ever look at that stuff? And I'll never forget what he said. I apologize if I've told the story before. He was just like, that transcription is just someone else's opinion. It's just some guy who listened to it and figured it out and wrote it down. So like if that guy can listen to it and figure it out, like I'm just going to figure it out. Why are we going to listen to that guy's opinion? You know what I'm saying? Like I remember thinking that was cool. I was like, yeah, right. Why are we going to listen to that guy's opinion? Fuck that guy. You know, I think there are certain things that's like good to be macho about. And I think it's good to be macho about this. Even if you're a woman, that's not a problem at all. Just like whoever you are, like whatever your gender identity is, there are certain things that I think it's good to be macho about. And this is one of them, you know? That's just someone else's opinion. What's your opinion about it? Try to figure it out. Now, it is hard. You have to develop your ear, you know, but ear training is possible. There are ways to do it. The other thing that's cool is that, like, even when you get it wrong, sometimes the thing you get is cool, you know? It can be valuable to be a little bit wrong. Cool. Yeah, but no, developing your ear is extremely important. One thing I loved, do you guys know about the Pat Metheny, Kenny G thing? Do we ever talk about this? Do you guys know where I'm going? Pat Metheny, who's a jazz guitar player, one of my favorite guitar players of all time, once wrote an essay on his own website where he just was like ripping to shit Kenny G, the musician. And the reason is that Kenny G, this was shortly after the death of Louis Armstrong, Kenny G released a version of It's What a Wonderful World. He overdubbed himself on top of the Armstrong's recording. He didn't just do his own interpretation. He like took a recording that had been Louis Armstrong's and then overdubbed himself on top of it. And Pat Metheny thought that was like really bad, like offensively bad, like desecrating jazz. Because Louis Armstrong invented jazz, and the point of jazz is to be original and improvise and come up with your own thing. And just sort of glorifying yourself by using the dead man's recording and then just sticking your thing on top of it. You know, Pat Metheny was like, you do not. You know, talking about drawing a line in the sand here, dude. And over this line, you do not. Like, Pat Metheny went full Walter Sobchak mode, you know? And so he wrote this whole thing on his website where he talked about how offensive that is to him. And he even addressed the fact, it's one of my favorite pieces of writing of all time, if you can't tell. He even addressed the fact. He was like, is it even cool to be going after another musician this hard? You know, aren't we all just trying to find the good notes, you know? Is there something distasteful about me even going this hard on another guy who's just trying to make a living playing an instrument? You know, what about that? He even addresses that. If you really want to know what he says to that, I think you should just go look this up. You'll be able to find it. Just look it up. But the reason I bring it up is that Pat Metheny also talks about how, like, he had occasionally run into Kenny G, like in the early 70s when Kenny G was a sideman for, who was he a sideman for? Kenny G was playing for someone else. Does anybody know? Does anyone know who Kenny G was playing a sideman for? It was, I would love to get it. See, the problem is that when I get to this, there's two choices. Like, just move on and let it go and not remember, or let the live stream come to a crashing halt while I try to get it. And it seems like that's the worst option. But the problem is that if I do get it, then I prove to myself that I do not have CTE. And it's just really nice when I can prove to myself that I do not have CTE. So I'm just going to try to think for another second. Who did Kenny G play? Lorber, Jeff Lorber. I got it. All right. I don't need to take a physical this year. I do not have CTE. That's awesome. Okay. Lorber. So Pat Metheny talks about how he occasionally saw Kenny G on tour as a sideman, and he just didn't think he was good, but he didn't see what the problem was until later when Kenny G did this, you know, sacrilegious overdubbing thing. But Pat Metheny rattles off all these observations he made about Kenny G, where he was like, you know, I did notice that he mostly was playing pentatonic, cheesy blues bullshit. He was consistently sharp. His time feel wasn't good. You know, he claims to not have paid very close attention to Kenny G, but remembered from decades earlier many very minute musical perceptions about this guy's style. And the reason I like that is that it gives me this impression that like Pat Metheny has musical Terminator vision, right? Here we go again. You know how in the Terminator movies, when it shows you like life from the Terminator's perspective, it's like the red screen, and then there's all these words that just come up everywhere. Like when he's in the biker bar and somebody's like smoking a cigar, the Terminator vision like lists the carcinogens in the cigar smoke, and it like displays it to him as like text. Like Pat Metheny has that anytime he listens to anything. He's just like getting all this data that is just there, right? And he's like, also he like never fucked around, you know, he like never like did any drugs or alcohol. I'm sure that guy was never anywhere close to getting CT. He's probably never been hit. So like he remembers it all. He's got perfect recall, you know. I've always wanted to have that. You know, anytime you look at anything musically, like can you find, you know, can you just like give yourself detailed files on it? It's a good way to I think your relationship with music benefits. Cyber, are you a session player? Yes, I've done this. At some point I want to make like a, you know, like a Google spreadsheet that I link to using Bitly so that nobody can find it, where I'll list like all the credits I've done, the stuff I've played on. Maybe some of the coolest stuff I've done recently, you know, my producer, Jeff Stanfield, has his own band called Farmer. There's a million really cool musicians that played on that. You know, guys you're going to love. I played on some of it. That's a really cool credit. I also did some work with my buddy Blake Fusilier, who's a New York musician. If you look him up, I have some credits with him that I'm proud of. I've done more than that, but these are recent things that come to mind. Also, this wasn't really a session situation, but I co-wrote and co-played a bunch of stuff with the singer Teddy Gold and our friend John, who produced it. And the Cyber Attack Teddy Gold collaboration, I wasn't a session player. It was like a collab, but it was really cool and I was proud of it. So yes, and then I've done much more beyond that. But at some point I'll like make a list of, or a playlist or something where you can see, you know, all the things. Hey, brother, ever heard of a guitarist named David Torn? Yeah, dude. I was hanging out with David Torn a couple weekends ago at this in-store. There, Russo Music in New Jersey was right near Six Flags. Did this like in-store event, and David Torn was there. And me and Emily Hopkins did like a little presentation, and I hung out with him all day. We're like bros. So yeah, that guy's amazing. I got to tell you, it was a cool event. They had like a bunch of pedal builders there, and like people got some like limited editions, and like, you know, there was a Q&A. It was rad. But David Torn also did a set for like 45 minutes, and it was in the middle of this like family music store, you know, just in Jersey somewhere, like near Jackson Township or whatever. And there would be like children coming into the store to like, you know, get a new reed for their clarinet. You know, their like parents would bring them, and they have to walk by this like David Torn set where he's just going full blast. You know, he was like, it was improvised. It was like, I mean, I thought it was amazing, but it was like, you know, it was out there. It was like Jimi Hendrix playing the national anthem without the national anthem. Like, take that part out. It was that. So these kids would walk in and their parents would be there, and then there's this room of like pedal bros, you know, us just standing there watching David Torn play some gnarly shit. And it was amazing. It was hysterical to me. I was like, this is what it feels like to be a character in a David Lynch movie. This is what it's like. You know, if the character in the David Lynch movie could hear the soundtrack, like the uncanny collision of like the children in the music store and the David Torn and the noise and like all these people just like staring rapt at David Torn, it was hilarious. I loved it. So that was pretty rad. There was one girl. So the other funny thing, not funny, the part of it that bummed me out a little bit was that like, you know, these people would walk into the music store because they like whatever, you know, they had to get the valve on their saxophone adjusted because like the wind ensemble director at their middle school told them they had to do that. So they walk in and there's clearly some weird thing happening, and like nobody had any reaction. I mean, it was clearly weird, but everyone was like, I'm just not going to let this get to me. And then there was one girl who was like 11 who I could tell was like, she was like looking at us, like just these like unwashed pedal dudes, and like laughing a little bit at just like how fucking weird it all was. And then was like trying not to laugh. And I was like, that girl gets it. She's the true artist, because she's not deleting what she's experiencing. You know, she's not just sort of being like, well, I guess I'm supposed to act like this is normal. She's doing the thing. She's like really taking it in and really noticing it. You know, she's got the Terminator vision. She's like, that's fucked up. That's kind of funny. You know what I mean? I was like, that girl, she's the one. She's the one with the future. Anyway, cool. All right, great. Let's keep moving. There's a lot of questions I'm supposed to get through that I didn't get through. All right, here's one from my man, my new BFF, Sid to Squid. What songs did you most enjoy or were pleasantly surprised when your singing teacher had you sing them? Any you were disappointed you couldn't connect with? Yeah, cool. This is a high information question. So I think I previously talked about my current singing teacher will like give me songs she thinks I would benefit from learning that are hard and uncomfortable, you know? Like one of them was Mona Lisa by Nat King Cole. Another one was Jealous by Labyrinth. You know, all of these were like uncomfortable for me. There was no pleasant surprise, I don't think. Oh, I have to do a Chris Stapleton song, Nobody's Fault But Nobody to Blame. Hagar, nobody to blame but me. Nobody to Blame, I think it's called. That was the one that I dreaded the least. That song is just about some guy who fucked up. I was like, oh yeah, I can do that. That I wouldn't say I was pleasantly surprised. I mean, I took on every assignment. Like I forced myself to do it. I forced myself to try to sing these songs. I'm a good student. Like I showed up to the lesson having like spent time on it, you know. So I think I was enriched. None of these are songs I ever want to have to do in front of anybody. I think there are things I maybe learned. The Chris Stapleton one was the one where I was like, this is the one I can relate to close to the most, you know. He could like the thing with him that was sort of cool is that he would like let the note go, and then the interesting thing would just be on the end of the note. Hagar. You know, instead of saying, I got, that's how I would sing it. I got nobody to blame but me. Like, that's how I would come into the session. And he was like, Hagar. You know, he's like, I'm not even saying it. Hagar, nobody to blame but me. Like, it's like the after. He's like not even doing, he's like only singing it just to get to the end of the decay. And then that's where he plants his flag. I thought that was cool. But Mona Lisa by Nat King Cole, I can't relate to that. That's too old timey. I think I can go back pretty far, but that one was like I don't feel like I live in a world where like we're like relating, where the girl I have a crush on reminds me of the Mona Lisa, and it's like it's just not. It's not because I don't think the Mona Lisa is beautiful or whatever. It's just because, you know, it's not where my mind goes. And then the Labyrinth song was hard. You know, I know that guy's talented, but his vowels are weird. You know, I'm jealous of the rain. You know, that's not the world I live in. I'm jealous of the rain. It's like I get that my version is unattractive. I get it. I understand. It's just you're never gonna hear me say like, I'm jealous of the wind. You know, that's just not the world I'm from. When is the new album being released? I heard a sample of a song in a video a year ago, and it was from an upcoming album. Coming here was really interesting. Man, thank you. That was a year ago already. Man, that's brutal. That's brutal. My goal is to finish it this year. You know, I would love to finish recording it this summer. That would be great. I'm sorry it's taking so long. I'm sorry. I also make mistakes. You know, maybe we should get this out of the way now. I come on here, I give people advice, I tell them they screwed up, I told them they got things completely wrong. You know, I'm making mistakes too. You know, I'm spending too long on my album. You know, I got sort of dysfunctionally, you know, attentive to the details and, you know, perfectionist and stuff. You know, don't spend as much time on your album as I spent on mine. You know, you'll get addicted to listening to the unfinished version while fantasizing about the perfect completed version. And that's terrible. You'll get hooked on listening to the thing that isn't really how it goes, but it sounds cool for the unmixed, unfinished thing, and fantasizing about what it's going to be like when it is really what it's supposed to be. Instead of making it that, you'll just fantasize about it. Very dangerous. It's like being on drugs. You know what I mean? It's like living in a pastime paradise. All right. Okay. Oh man. All right. Let me keep going with some of these pre-submitteds. Oh, here's another one from Denny Hill. All right. Oh man, I should make these questions shorter so they can fit into one little. Yeah, demoitis, right? Yeah, exactly. I forgot that there was a name for the thing I was describing, demoitis. Yeah, except forgetting that there's a name for the thing you're describing, that's not bad because it forces you to just say what you mean from first principles, and that's what I was telling people to do before. How do you get comfortable with introducing extremely affected sounds? I love the anything less than 100% wet is weakness ethos. But taking sounds that sometimes don't sound like a guitar to band practice kind of freaks me out, and I end up chicking out of some of the really wild sounds. Do you have any wisdom or advice as to how I can overcome this and unleash a proper racket? Yes, I have very straightforward advice for this. The solution here is to just be prepared and to think in terms of parts. The answer to this is parts. If you just bring in some fucked up weird sound, people are just going to be like, well, that sound is unusable. So you have to have the part, you in between your band practices, you might have to spend a little time on this. Like, see if you can find the part that makes the sound cool, showing like people are not going to be as good as you want them to be if you ask them to judge the sound. That's something that like the producer of your record will be able to do. Engineers can do shit like that. They hear the sound of like, oh yeah, that could be cool. Everyone else is just going to be like, nah, it's a weird sound, isn't it? So you got to show them the part, If you can come up with a part that justifies the sound, then people will be like, yeah, cool. That part is cool. So you just got to think in terms of parts, not in terms of sounds. I really think I address this in every single pedal video I've ever made, right? Like, I give you the sound, which is weird, then I play a part with it, and then the part goes into a song, and the song gets illustrated and animated with the dancing action figures. All I'm ever doing is finding parts. You haven't really done anything until you found the part. So don't, if you feel like, I agree with you that it might not go well if you just try to jam and improvise and you're trying these sounds and the sounds are fucked up. But that's why I said try to come in prepared. Spend some time with the sounds you have in mind, save them as presets, get to know them, come up with some parts you think might be cool, and then try to play the parts, I think that's how you set yourself up for success here. All right. All right, then here's one from Uno is a Fun Game. Again, I should have broken this one. I'm going to have to break this one up. Sorry about that. Oh, this is a 3-parter. That's terrible. This one has to fit into 3 different Kiss Cam snippets. A lot of your tip videos advise milking sounds out of the gear you already have and finding new avenues from within instead of running out and purchasing a new pedal to get the job done. Now that you are releasing a signature pedal, aren't you worried that this school of thought will hurt sales of your pedal? I want to support your channel, but because I respect your advice, I think purchasing your pedal could be weakness. Should I just quit music altogether? Okay. All right. I think we all spotted the various ways in which this guy was like, trying to give me a taste of my own medicine here with his like little style of making points and throwing people's shit right back at them. So, okay. I noted. Yeah, no, I'm not worried about it. Aren't you worried that this school of thought will hurt sales of your pedal? No, I'm not worried about it. You know what I mean? If you don't want to, I don't think I'm going to become a millionaire from the sales of this pedal. It'd be nice to make some money on it, but I'm releasing the pedal because I think it's cool and because I see the pedal as like a companion piece to the album. And I talked about this last time. I also see the pedal and the album as sort of like proof that if you live by all these like super insane religious beliefs I'm telling you got to live by all the time, you can produce stuff, you know? So like, it's a little bit like the album. Like, am I going to make $500,000 on the streaming for my next album? You know, that would be cool. But I'm not putting it out because I think I'm going to make $500,000. I'm putting it out because I think it's going to be cool and people will listen to it and people will get it. And this is what I'm trying to do. And I think I can get people to listen to it. And I think also the album will raise my profile. And then by raising my profile, I'll make more money doing the shit that I already make money from doing. And I think the pedal is the same thing. Like, I think the pedal will advance my career, and having a signature pedal and getting the signature pedal reviewed and putting the signature pedal out at the same time that the album comes out will force the pedal reviews to mention the album. You know, I think it'll make the numbers go up. And when the numbers go up, I make more money later. Even if, you know, the pedal sales don't turn me into a millionaire. You know what I'm saying? So I'm not worried about it. No. And if you don't think you need to buy my pedal, don't buy it. You know what I mean? Not buying pedals is probably the right choice, including not buying mine. Okay, but then also, you know, I use pedals a lot, and there are certain things that I wish was easier to do that I currently, there are certain sounds I can get at the moment where I either need to use many pedals at once to get the sound, or I have to do some really complicated, annoying thing that I don't like having to do. Like, I have to hook up an automatic expression pedal and tune the range of the expression sweep to be a certain thing. And it's annoying to have to do that. Or I have to chain this pedal into that pedal into that pedal, and it's annoying to have to hook up 3. You know, these are things I care about doing that I know they sound fucking cool, and I put them in videos and people say they sound cool and everybody agrees it sounds cool, but it's like annoying and hard to hook it up. My signature pedal is just going to do those things in one pedal. So even if you're the most macho, I don't need to buy effects because I can do everything with what I already have guy that ever lived, even then, you know, my pedal will make it easier to do the thing you can already do. My pedal makes it easier for me to do the things I can already do. There are a couple new things it can do, but it can do a lot of things, and it can free up some space on your pedal board when it comes out. So that's my real answer to your question. Do you play through the laptop always, or are you a tube amp guy too? You know, for recording and practicing, it's just so much easier. I live in a New York apartment, so it's nice to just be able to do shit on headphones, especially if I'm like trying to do something late at night. I still love amps, you know. I bought a JCM 800 50-watt full stack from my guitar teacher when I was in high school. I still love that amp. I bought a couple other JCM 800 50 watts since then because of how much I love it. I still have those amps. I think they sound great. You know, but it's just easy to, you know, they have to be loud, and it's nice to do shit that's not loud. So the answer is I like to do both. All right, cool. Let's keep going. Here's a cool one. I like this. This next question is this is one of those times where the person asking the question is like already on the right track. When writing and or recording a song, how do you choose your sound palette, i.e. tones, effects, pedals, etc.? Do you hear it in your head and have a good idea of what you want, or do you have feeling for what the song needs? Do you play around, experimenting, listening? I tried a lot of different ways. And I also try to make sure that it works with nothing. And by nothing, I mean like play guitar unplugged and sing. Like, I don't mean like no effects. I mean unplugged. Just like do this. You know, see if you can write a song that you don't hate when you do it that way. That is a song I wrote. It's called Unrealistic. It's going to be on the next album. It doesn't go do 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 do, and it's not an unplugged guitar strumming. It's got all kinds of different shit happening. But when I was writing it in the early days, I played it like that in the most unproduced possible way, where it's, you know, Prince once said music is a spotlight and a microphone. Can you make it work with a spotlight and a microphone? You know, that if you can make it work there, I think then you're going to be okay. And then you end up sort of just having to choose how to produce the song that you wrote, but you can be confident that the song is okay. You know, it's almost like someone else wrote it and you're covering it. You know, the song you wrote when you were just in world, someone else wrote that, and now you're just trying to come up with the coolest cover you can. I like to think of it that way sometimes because I think there's like a separation from the material there that sometimes can help you hear things a little more clearly. But then I make a lot of different demos. You know, I try it this way, I try it that way. When I put my album out, I'm going to release to my Patreon people some of the abandoned versions of similar songs. Sorry, that's not what I mean. There'll be the song, and then I'll release some of the demos that went completely differently and would sound like almost completely different songs. When I write a song, sometimes I demo or even pay to record very, very different versions of it. You know, in fact, I'm even a little worried that like I'll put out the song and then my Patreon people will get the abandoned version and they'll be like, dude, that was so much cooler. I even use the little musical shit in my pedal videos as like mini demos, you know, for the song I'm writing. Sometimes if I have to talk about whatever pedal, I'll just cover the song I'm writing using that pedal, and that'll be like a sketch of what if it went in this direction. So the answer is that I demo stuff all kinds of different ways, and then, you know, it gets hard because then at some point you have to make a decision. You just have to be like, well, I guess I want to do it that way. You know, that's terrifying. What can I tell you? But there's no version of having a music career that is like not gonna be stressful. It's not for everybody. I mean, I don't mean to say that like, when I say it's not for everybody, I mean like, you know, it's gonna suck, and you're gonna have to deal with rejection and make difficult decisions and like sacrifice things and regret decisions you made. I don't think anybody who's a successful musician looks back on it and was like, it was painless. You know, they might not have regrets. That's fine. That's cool. You know, when things go well, then everyone always says, well, everything that happened needed to happen for me to get where I am, and I like where I am, so I don't regret anything. Cool. Yeah, that's fine. That I don't think that contradicts what I'm saying. I don't think anyone looks back on a successful music career and says like, it was a breeze. You know, if it would be interesting if someone did. You can point me to the interview where I'm wrong if you know one. Why would you go to a studio if you already have a nice little recording interface? Well, drums is a big one. I can't record drums. Recording drums is like, I think, the hardest thing to record. You know, even a small setup, I think, it's still fucking complicated. And if you don't set the microphones right, it's all going to be wrong. And like phase cancellation and shit that I used to understand that I don't even really think I remember how it works anymore. Drums is a reason. My record has live drums on it. The drummers on my record are probably, I mean, I have a lot of, I shred. I got Jeff from Sweet Fix back. He plays some keyboard on it. He shreds. I got Justin, my bass player, to play on it. He shreds. I shred a lot. But I think the drummers on my record are probably, I think the most insane performances on my record are the drummers, Ted Poor and Dave Ravelli. Those, I have two different drummers. They both did stuff. They came in at such a high level that I sort of like rewrote the material a little bit. Like they played to a version of the song, and then we kept the performance, and I went back and like kind of rewrote everything, not everything, but rewrote some stuff to because of how awesome the performance was. And like I feel like they sort of like realized what the material could be better than I did, you know. So that's one reason. All right, cool. I got a couple more I got to get through here. All right. This is one from, what's this guy's name? Nicholas. Oh, weird. I copied and pasted this bad. Let me try that again. Hold on. Oh, well, who cares? All right. Have you had any? Wait, where is it? Where's the fucking? What happened to the question? I have like a bad copy and pasting error. Jesus. Where'd the question go? Here we go. Here it is. Sorry. This. All right. I'm sorry that I copied and pasted badly. That's embarrassing. After all this time, you would think that I could do it. Which aspects of your playing have you consciously focused on that have returned the most musical dividends? Have you had any light bulb moments outside of effects that changed your music for the better, or was your musical journey a more linear progression? I don't really know what you mean by linear progression. I don't understand like what would be linear or not linear. Like two guitar players and one had a linear progression and the other one didn't. What's the difference? I don't know. So I'm going to ignore that part. Which aspects of your playing have you focused on that have returned the most musical dividends? I mean, this is maybe not what people who are super into pedals want to hear, but I think the honest answer is like clean technique and good fundamentals that have nothing to do with pedals. I didn't use pedals for a long time. Like, sorry, let me just hop on this question real quick. How big a difference did studio recordings make for your vocals? Dude, and can you share a vocal chain? I don't do that. I record the shit that I can. I have like a nice mic. I'm not going to use this. I have like a Mojave 300 something mic that's nice. And I think I have like a UA. I think I have a UA plugin that is like the limiter everybody loves. The mastering limiter that's like the one. I have like some fake software version of that I put on my vocals, but that's it. And then I give it to my producer, and it's his problem, and he does it. And what he does is like that's his proprietary secret sauce. So I couldn't tell you. I'm not like a vocal engineer, a vocal producer, and I'm glad I don't have to be. That's like its own world. Is this someone explaining to me what a linear progression is? The concept of punctuated equilibrium, basically short periods of rapid growth interspersed with plateau periods. Okay, well, thank you for answering the question. I have no idea. I mean, I think the better you get at something, everyone who gets better at stuff starts getting better in a much more gradual, subtle way, Like, I'm still getting better, but, like, it's hard for me to hear the ways that I'm better than I was a year ago, Where, like, part of the reason why I like boxing so much is that, like, I'm still... I'm better than I was 6 months ago. You know what I mean? Like I'm still, that's like my hobby. Like I don't think I'm bad, but I'm still in the phase of life where like I'm seeing the growth, and like I continue to think, I think I get better as a musician and as a guitar player. Like I'm keeping myself in the game, but the kinds of things that I count as growth for me at this point are not like, it's not like 6 months ago I didn't look as good and now I look better. You know what I mean? It's not like that. So that's part of it. I mean, like, what are the kinds of things I care about? Like, I mean, but here's the other thing. As a guitar player, like, sometimes you just give yourself this challenge that you have to do because it's right in front of you. Like if I decide that I want to cover, Postmortem by Slayer and in a pedal video, and it's been a while since like my downstrokes were that happening, and so I had to like practice for a while to do it, but I like practiced for 2 weeks and then I could do it, and then I recorded it, and like now my downstrokes are probably not as good as they were during those 2 weeks, but you reach a point where you can sort of just force yourself to work on whatever assignment is in front of you. Be careful of your hands boxing. I'm always amazed how many people say this to me. My hands have never been injured. Never. I've had some sports related injuries in the ring that have sucked, and it's never been this. Like I wrap them up. I use gloves. Everybody else is wrapped up and using gloves. Like, I appreciate your concern. Maybe you guys know something I don't. That's very possible. But like, I think there's some risks I'm taking, and I do not think it's this. You know, maybe that's really dumb. Maybe that's famous last words, but you know, the shit that I worry about going wrong is like, you know, you heard me say it before. It's like I'm worried that I'm just not gonna, you know, I'm not gonna know my own name anymore. Yeah, famous last words. Oh, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong. You know what I mean? But I try not to be. I try not to live in fear, and I try not to be superstitious. You know, I don't always succeed, but I try not to. All right. Oh, but sorry, I sort of neglected the question though. Sorry. What was the question? Oh yeah. What aspects of your playing have you consciously focused on that return the most musical dividends? Right. So I think it's just like being able to play the guitar clean effectively, like having good muting, right? Can you play a pentatonic scale without having the strings ring out and resonate while you're playing? You know, if you've never thought about that, I bet you can't do it. I think I mean, maybe that's wrong. You know, there are people who never had to think about it and they could do it. But those people are like naturals. You know what I mean? The people who just, without consciously having to devote time and attention to it, are able to mute unwanted string noise from everything they're playing. Those people are like stone cold natural talents. And if you're not a stone cold natural talent and you've never thought about how to play guitar where the open strings can't ring out, I don't think you're doing it. And I think, for me, being able to play clean has benefited me the whole time. I also, you know, sometimes I play like guitar synth pedals and I'll read on forums, people complain that this one doesn't have good enough tracking, that one doesn't have good enough tracking. I've always thought they have fine tracking. That like to me, they all have the same kind of tracking. Every synth pedal I've ever played has sort of been like, oh right, this has that. But I've never thought one is bad or worse than the other. But then I remember that like I don't have bullshit. Like my guitar teacher forced me to play with perfect muting at all times. I force my students to play with perfect muting all times. Like if you invest in that early, it becomes second nature and you don't have to think about it ever again for the rest of your life. And you can just play cleanly and it's great. And like synth pedals can track for you, and like shit that is giving other people flat tires, you can just drive right over it, you know? So, I think, greetings from Montenegro, first time writing. So what tunings do you use? Standard all the way. Standard all the way. Other tunings are cool, you know. I don't think you can take on all the weird things at all times. You know, weird tunings, weird pedals, weird temperament. Like you gotta choose the weird thing you're gonna do, and I'm letting the tunings be normal for me for now. But anyway. My point is, I think the things that give you the most musical dividends is just being able to like pick up the play straight. I think it's good. There are people who succeed who don't do that. You know, those people are very talented. You know, you should ask yourself. So I don't think I would have been able to do the stuff I do and have the career I have if I had not learned how to basically play clean, proper technique from my guitar teacher. And I'm including this, like knowing how to make heads or tails of like what key you're in, what to do with a non-diatonic chord, what to do with non-diatonic scales, how to understand timing and rhythm, like the musical basics, like being able to make heads or tails of any piece of musical information, even if it's not your genre. It's okay to have a genre. I have my genres too, and I know there's the stuff I understand and the stuff that's harder for me to understand, but I have a library card and I can like go to the library and refresh my memory and learn about the stuff that is not the stuff that I have right under my fingertips, because I was sort of given a bird's eye understanding of the whole thing from my own musical education. I have that. And some people, you know, think they might not need it. And some people point out that other players had good careers without having those things and like didn't have the education I had and made it farther. Yeah, that's true. Those people are more talented than me. So, you know what I mean? You can do a lot with less if you're talented. So my question for anyone wondering, do I really need to learn that stuff? You know, ask yourself if you're more talented than me. And if you think you're more talented than me, Ivan Anderson, the guy with the YouTube channel, then you maybe don't. Maybe you don't. You might not need it if you're more talented than me. If you think you're not more talented than me, then I think you probably need it. And the last thing I'll say to the people who think they're more talented than me is, what are you doing with your talent in that case? All right. Any other questions I have to get through? I think that was it. Here's maybe one more I would do. I love this. How do you stave off existential dread? Yeah, that's hard. It is hard. I mean, I do think that, like, yes, sometimes you need to just, like, repress it in order to function. I do that. Like, sometimes you just need to shove it down, like a man. You just shove it down. But you can't only shove it down. You have to be able to occasionally confront it, and then the question is like, well, what are we doing about it? What if it's all a big nothing and we're all gonna die and this is all we have and we're wasting it? I can tell you that, like, making an honest effort to do the things you care about is therapeutic. You might think, well, if I do it and I don't succeed, it'll be a waste. People underestimate how good it feels just to try the thing, just to honestly try. Your mind and your body feel good when you make an honest attempt at something, even if it doesn't go quite the way you want it to. It's like, the feeling when you walk home from the gym and you're like a little bit fried and you're a little bit too tired and you're like hungry in this way that is different. Even if I've never walked home from the gym having been the best guy at my gym ever, but I've always felt good. Your brain sort of will make this deal with you where it's just like, if you just attempt, we'll release the good chemical. That's the deal. Sometimes you doubt it. And maybe also some people have chemical imbalances where their brain does not make this deal for them. And that's, my heart goes out to those people. My advice should not take the place of, like, real medical professionals. That not all of life's problems can be solved based on things cyber attacks said. I'm sorry to tell you. Some of the people watching this would probably benefit from. Everybody watching this would benefit from taking advice from, like, professionals who are more informed than I am. All I can tell you is that if you honestly try to do the things you care about doing and get better at the things you care about getting better at, and doing the things you want to do, but you're a little bit afraid to do them, whatever that thing is, I'm pretty confident that if you just, like, close your eyes and ask yourself, what's the thing I kind of want to do, but I'm afraid to do it? Identify the thing. If you then try the thing, I think the existential dread takes a hit. Even if there's no obvious relationship with there's this, like, illusion your brain will give you. Your brain will just be like, psst, thanks a lot. Here's a gift. And the gift is the existential dread weakens a little bit. So, that's the best I can do for you. How did you find a legit producer, not some random guy that knows what he's talking about? So when the guy I work with, Jeff Stanfield, I originally met because we did a crowdfunding thing with this service called Pledge Music, and somebody at Pledge Music, we had meetings with the different crowdfunders. I don't know if you can still do this, but, like, in 2012 you could do shit like this. Crowdfunding was so new that you could, like, call Indiegogo and, like, ask to have a meeting with Indiegogo, and, like, Indiegogo would have a person who would, like, talk to you and answer your questions and, like, hold your hand a little bit. And maybe they still do that. But there was no, like, AI virtual assistant. It wasn't just a call center with somebody who's been given a script. You could, like, call Indiegogo and somebody at Indiegogo would pick up the phone. So we did that at Indiegogo and Kickstarter and Pledge Music. And Pledge Music convinced us that they were the ones that really cared the most, not just about helping you raise the money, but helping you, like, do the thing you were trying to do. Like, and the guy whose name I forget, who took the meeting with us, said, like, I listen to your stuff. I know a guy who sounds like he might be the cool producer. And that guy ended up being Jeff Stanfield, who I always talk about on these things. Jeff Stanfield produced the Sweet Fix record. That's how we met. Even when Sweet Fix broke up, we stayed in touch and continued to do a bunch of stuff together. He produced the first Cybertech record. I played on his band Farmer. He's producing the next Cybertech record. So that's how I got there. I don't know how helpful that is for you. I don't know if you can still call Pledge Music and just take a meeting with the guy there. Oh, dude, about to lose my housing. I'm really sorry, man. My heart is going out to you. I didn't realize. With the existential dread, I thought we were talking in a little more philosophical terms. This is a much more urgent problem. I'm really sorry. I don't know exactly what you're supposed to do in a situation like that, but all I can tell you is that I am rooting for you. I believe in you. I'm thinking about you. Anyway, back to this question, the producer question. You can listen to their work, right? Like, he should have credits. If he sounds like he knows what he's talking about, just ask him to send you stuff he produced. And if you think it sounds cool, that's good. And if you don't think don't let anyone talk you into hiring them if you don't like how their work sounds. I feel like that's obvious, but I'll just say it. Like, if he talks a good game, but when you listen to his stuff, you're just not seduced, just don't hire him, I would say. So there's that. Can you just cold call them and hire them? I think for some amount of money, probably yes. Maybe I'm wrong, but I just assume that like there's some amount of money where like they'll pick up the phone, But I could be wrong. I don't know. All right. All right, let me give this. Here's going to be my last one. What advice would you give to someone who's learning sound design and mastering and EQing? And what is something you wish you would have done differently starting out? Mastering is like a full-time job that is what those people do, and that's just the thing they're good at. So it's a little bit confusing to me, like how you grouped these things. Like sound design, which is like a sort of big, wide open concept that is like kind of what we're all doing all the time anyway. EQing, which is like a very specific, engineering skill, and mastering, which is like a career that, people devote lifetimes to. I'm a little suspicious of like where and how you got to a place where those three things make sense as a list of three things. I'm about to sound like an old man. I wonder sometimes if like when I get comments like this, it makes me wonder if you're very young and also using AI. And I apologize if that's wrong. And I apologize if I sound like an old, I don't think I sound like an old. I think sometimes I sound like a psycho. And like sometimes I probably sound kind of like, macho and uptight. And I think sometimes I sound unnecessarily hostile, I don't think I sound like an old, but I could be wrong about that. It's so horrifying to be wrong about what you sound like. Horrifying. I've been wrong about it before. So maybe I sound like an old all the time, and this is nothing new. I apologize if I brought us there, but you sound a little bit like someone who is sort of teaching yourself everything. And, oh, dude, as an old, I can confirm you are not old. Man, I got to tell you, that feels good. I love it when people say shit like that. I know I gave you a hard time before. I don't know if you're just getting here, but I really went to town on your fucking Thin Lizzy question 2 hours ago. I don't know if you saw that or not. If you didn't, you should start this live stream from the beginning. If you did, I'm amazed at your mercy that you would give me this, the greatest of gifts. You would say that succulent sentence to me. It's a gift anytime someone says like, I am old, you are not. It just doesn't get better than that. Maybe the true youngs don't know what I'm talking about, but like, give it time. Give it time. Give it time. I went to the grocery store the other day, and the guy at the deli counter said, "What do you want, young man?" And I was just like, I like this guy so much. That's all he said. He didn't say anything else. I was like, that's like the nicest guy I've met all year. Are you okay? Anyway, so thank you for this. Like, I'm gonna try to give the mercy and the kindness you have shown me, Dana, by saying that sentence, I'm going to try to give that back into the world. All right. Now, who was I talking to a second ago? Oh, yeah. The kid. Maybe he's not a kid. Right. Something about this question makes me think you're doing the self-teaching route to music. And, I honestly think the way, here's how I learned the little I know about mastering, which I'm not qualified to talk about, EQing and sound design. I took music engineering courses in college. I was lucky that the school I went to had like recording classes, a music studio, recording technology. You had to take, there was like a studio, but you couldn't get into the studio class until you took requirements. And the requirements also had shit in them that I didn't want to do. Like I had to learn about experimental 20th century music, I went to the first class and the professor was like doing some performance piece with this like electronic glove he'd invented, and if you like moved the glove, it did like theremin shit. And this was at a time in my life when I just did not trust anything that did not on some level remind me of Van Halen or the Sopranos. So I was just like, get the fuck out of here. A glove, you know what I mean? Do I look like I'm trying to figure out how to do a glove, but that class opened my mind and it expanded my horizons and it added to the list of things. It was my life was no longer just Van Halen and the Sopranos after that. So anyway, I took the requirement courses. I got over my prejudice. I recommend getting over your prejudice. And I like took a class in acoustics and all this shit. I learned about synthesis. I learned about sound design. I learned about EQing. I don't know how to learn about it if you're just going to teach yourself and ask AI questions and ask Google questions. I don't know. I think you should, if you're really this interested in about it, like try to take a class about it. That's the best advice I can give. All right. It's been 2 hours. Everybody, thank you. I know I neglected a lot of the chat people this time, and I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'll try to do better. I'm going to try to use... my role model is going to be that guy, Danit, who's like said the really nice thing to me about how he's old and I'm not old, even after I really trashed the question he asked earlier. So I'm going to try to be like that guy and just be like a better humanitarian and spend more attention to my chat people in the future. Yeah, I agree with this. EQ is a correction. Focus on making first. Yeah, I mean, I've said this before. I think one great, very legitimate approach to EQ is to try to not have to use it and just try to make everything sound good. Try to make it, try to get it right the first time, numbskull. Like, don't push record until you think it sounds good already. And then, but then what are you doing if it's the first thing and there's no mix to judge yet? Well, make the first thing sound good. Whatever is the first thing you're playing, if it's just the guitar part and the metronome, try to make the guitar part sound good, and then don't add another track until it sounds good with the guitar you put down, I would also maybe try to figure out the drums as early as possible because that's going to be that's like in some ways the most important thing. All right. Everybody, thanks again for being a part of this. I know that sometimes like, I can be a little adversarial, and I also tell you that I'm going to answer your questions, and then I largely ignore them. So thank you for sticking with me despite that. Drop me an email anytime. I really do appreciate the support. I love that we have this sort of weird hangout that we do with the faucet water. Keep drinking faucet water. Don't overthink it. I really think you can accomplish a lot with just like bullshit bottled water that you drink to stay hydrated and trying really hard and like setting appropriate challenges for yourself. I think that can take care of a lot of problems. All right. Thanks a lot.